What is up, everybody? Man, that gets me so bricked up every time, Drew. We're beginning to be an official thing.
Oh, man, that should go hard, bro.
What is going on, everybody? This is Joe Frick. That is Drew Hannes, and this is the Around the 412 Fantasy Football Week 8 show. Drew, heard you feeling under the weather today. Questionable going into the show. You've made it here. Hopefully, you're going to do a little bit more than Debo Samuel today. How you feel?
3 snaps, end up in the hospital. Out though, so it's good to hear.
Crazy, dude. Well, we won't keep the people waiting. We are in the back half of the season now, so let's see what we got. And we'll just kind of rock from there. It'll be good. So let's see what happens. Apparently, also, I don't know how to do things correctly, even though we do this every week. So haven't started streaming the Twitch yet. We're gonna fix that now. It's gonna be great.
You were just trying to figure out how to play that video the whole time.
I was. There's actually a setting now that allows you to have it preset so that it's ready to go. If you recall, the first time that we took over the show, I started the show. Then we played the intro video, and then Zach came in and was like, y'all suck. It is what it is. But it's week 8. We're still alive and kicking. Drew, throw on the lab coat. What do you got for me, man? What's happening in the wide world of injuries?
This is a brutal week, actually. I guess it's not a lot of injuries, but it's like every single one was notable. So it's like brutal. We'll start off with Zay Flowers. Suffered an ankle injury. They didn't really provide much yet. I feel like it's probably a high ankle sprain, the way he was working through it. So something to monitor. If it is a high ankle, he's probably likely to miss this week. Rashad Bateman was a hot commodity on waivers this week, rightfully so, even though I'm still not buying that.
Mark Andrews back?
No. The dude, decided to go for 2 tutties the week I play him in 4 leagues. And it's crap. Killed me in fishbowl, too.
He's been hot, but, his utilization has not been so great.
Yeah. I'm not buying it yet. I did add him on waivers, though, because he was dropped in so many leagues.
I couldn't.
You never know. We're going to skip through this one really quick with Deshaun Watson towards Achilles. Moving on. Don't need to say much about that. How he's been perceived and everything. We're not going to get into that, but he'll be out. I'm going to switch to Jameis Winston. At least he'll be fun.
All right, Drew. Rank player, person, injury from best to worst.
Part of my take crew already did that.
Did they really?
A better person than football player at this point. That's how bad he's been. That's what they said, and I'd buy it.
Where do you layer in an Achilles?
I don't even know how to say that. I mean, the dude's career could technically be over. I don't think that it is, but the way he was going off the field, it looked like he just didn't have it anymore. He just didn't care. You know what I mean? The way he was crying. I mean, obviously the fans were cheering for the injury and all that jazz, but as Big Cat said on Bar in My Take over the last few weeks, it was just a matter of time till he got hurt, and they were he's trying to get hurt that way he can just be done, and it's just weird. But
yeah,
we're already talking about him way too much. He wasn't good for fantasy. Obviously, everything's been going on with him since 2020. It's just brutal. But he's not going to be playing this year. But again, Jameis is super fun. I'm just happy that he's getting his shot again.
Yeah.
We'll move forward with Aiden O'Connell. Broke his thumb. He's already placed on IR. Going back to Gardner Minshew. 2 is going to return this week. So I thought that was something worth highlighting. Tyreek is
amped right now.
Yeah. He went in front of the cameras and he's just ready to roll. So
strike up the effing band. Start me.
You should have accepted my dynasty trade 2 days ago when I sent it. Now I have to sit here and
yesterday's price is not today's price, Drew. Come on, man.
It's brutal.
Strawman's got an offer out there for Terry McLaurin, 2026 first-round pick.
All right. This freaking guy. He'll probably pull the deal.
Probably going to expect it.
Rashid Shaheed tore his meniscus, so we actually did get the bad end of the spectrum that we talked about last week, so he'll be done for the year. Brandon Ayuk tore his ACL, so he will also be done for the year. I mean, I've always been a Jawan Jennings guy. We talked about this in depth, like even before the season. He was someone that I added during the offseason in a lot of dynasty leagues just because when he's given the opportunity, he's been good, and we didn't know what Ayuk is going to look like this year, whether he was going to play or not, where he was going to play. So the fact that he'll get his shot is pretty exciting, where it's going to be real. It's not just going to be a one-week thing, so something to look out for there. He was like the waiver wire ad this week.
Oh, yeah, he was big time. And who would have thought going into the season, the wide receiver that got shot by that plays for the 49ers is the most healthy receiver that they have right now.
Yeah. There's a lot of, he didn't get to really practice and like work into the offense during the offseason because of that whole situation. So like the fact that Jawan Jennings is being perceived as he isn't surprising to me. And that's the route that I would go into. But Pearsall, I mean, he's a good player. Like we love coming out of Florida, a guy that we thought the Steelers would look at in the second round, but of course he didn't get that far. So hopefully he does get a shot as well once he gets acclimated into the offense. DK Metcalf suffered a sprained MCL. He's going to be a game time decision, I feel like, but the dude is tough. If I had to guess, I think that he'd probably play. I think they're in the 4 o'clock window. Actually, they might be at 1 o'clock. They got the Bills. Can't remember. If he is at 4 o'clock, make sure you have a backup plan because he's likely to be a game time decision. I don't think that they'd rule him out earlier. Chris Godwin broke his ankle.
In garbage time.
This one was brutal too. I told you, like, I was facing him in fishbowl. That catch that he broke his ankle on gave that person the win. And I was like, I wonder if I go into the chat and be like, hey, would you, take that catch back, take this matchup as an L. That way you can have Chris Godwin the rest of the year. But it just sucks because he had no business being on the field. And it was an ugly hip tackle too. They're trying to outlaw that, but it's just tough because when the guy's way out in front of you, you're just trying to get anything you can to just pull him back and tackle him. It's just it's just tough. But his injury from a dynasty perspective as well, like they don't know how bad it is until they get in there. He could have cartilage damage. It could be way worse. But the dude, like, credit to him, just so positive, out on the cart, heading off the field. He was like, time to get back to work. Like, the dude is such a good dude. You hope that, everything works out with the surgery, and then we can kind of look forward to 2025 for him. He is a free agent, so it's a tough time to see that happen. Hopefully he still gets paid. I wouldn't be shocked if he goes on to like a 1-year prove-it deal, stay with Tampa, figure that out. But it's tough. Until he actually has his surgery, we don't really know what his long-term outlook is going to be. So
that Bills Seahawks game is 4:05, by the way, on Sunday.
Yeah. So make sure you have a backup option there because I think he's likely to be a game-time decision. And then Mike Evans, he came into the game with a hamstring injury, and like that looked like malpractice. Like the dude was like barely walking. Like his limp was very noticeable, and they were like, "We're only going to use him in the red zone." Like during this game, and then he goes for like a 40-yard deep route, and then the way he reacted when he extended, like he looked like I thought the thing tore off the bone by the way he was like screaming in the back of the end zone. It was brutal. But again, they just said hamstring. Obviously, it's much worse. He's probably an IR candidate, but I think that their bye is week 11 or 12, so they might keep him off on the chance that maybe he can come back right after their bye. But another tough loss for the Bucs. And then finally, the last one, Jaden Daniels suffered a rib injury. He's probably going to be a game-time decision this week, but I feel like he'll probably miss this game. So if you were riding Jaden Daniels, you'll have to look in another direction. And, my OnlyFantasy will be a guy that you can look into later in the show. I'll bring him up. But another guy that I considered that we won't talk about as much, maybe Bo Nix. He has a good matchup.
QB 13 right now. He's doing a lot better than I think what people expected. It's interesting too because if you think about the way that the Denver offense is operated, watching them, it doesn't feel like he should be, but he gets the runs. He's getting some touchdowns. Like he's out. He
has a rushing touchdown in 4 or 6 games.
Yeah, so getting it done, and that's kind of what he did at Oregon too. So it's been interesting to see. All right, so let's get into the comments real quick before we jump into our Week 8 headlines. So Chad definitely feeling the injury bug right now. So Dynasty Championship in shambles, losing Evans, Flowers trending down, Terry down a QB, Mason, CMC losing, Aaron Jones is Aaron Jones. T's and P's, man. That's just not ideal.
I don't know about that Aaron Jones comment, though. I feel like he's been playing a lot better than he's
I think it's just the fear of like Aaron Jones. Like he hasn't played a full season in a long time.
Right.
And he's a little bit banged up. So can you hold on? He's somebody that I've actually been considering trading for. Could be fun. I'm not sure. We'll see.
Yeah, and he also has a comment about Brandon Aubrey with an injury. He's actually in jury duty. He's not hurt.
Yeah, so, crazy as that.
Yeah, he's not going to miss this game. I mean, the dude's just an elite kicker. He could skip practice all week and show up on Sunday and just kick field goals. I'm not worried about that at all, let's be honest. And they're not going to have jury duty on Sunday. So, what'd you say?
That he's only going to be able to kick from 55 this week. All right, so we got Nicholas here. Question for start sit this week. Welcome to the show. Jordan Addison, Tyler Lockett. Drew, how are you feeling about it? Just to give you some background on the matchups. Minnesota, the Rams have been nasty against the pass. Granted, they've played Vegas, Chicago, Green Bay in the last 3 weeks, but they're giving up 14.9 points less than the NFL average in the last 3 weeks. Seattle going up against Buffalo. Buffalo's given up 6.4 points more than the average. At the injury potential with DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett feels like a more comfortable start for me. I don't think that the passing volume is there for the Vikings, and I think that Los Angeles, like, they've been pretty locked down, at least in the past. The way to beat them has been on the ground. I think Aaron Jones is a big day, and I think that Addison's borderline flex, probably a bench for me.
Agreed. And TJ Hawkinson's expected to come back this week, and the dude, like, everyone's saying that his progression through his ACL injury was just like a straight linear line. Like it was just like every milestone he hit, no issues along the way, and that he looks great. Like I actually picked him up in a few leagues and I stashed him because he didn't really get drafted in majority of redraft leagues.
It depends if you have IR, I think. I feel like him and Brooks were like, if you have an IR spot, people would go and do it, but otherwise.
Right. Yeah. So I'm actually excited for him, and I expect him to, get more targets in that offense if he does come back as healthy as they're saying.
For sure. Sweet. All right. Well, let's keep the comments coming. If you have anything, please feel free to hit us in the chat. Your start, sits, trade questions, really anything you got. We're going to transition now into fantasy football headlines for the week. We're actually going to kick this one off with a comment. Drew, just any thoughts on the Robert Saleh hire? I don't know if you saw it, but they're expecting him, like Chad is saying, going to be in an offensive coaching role to give perspective on what the defenses might do. Any thoughts? Do you think that this changes anything? Feels like a weird hire to me too, but get paid.
I'm a Robert Saleh guy. I'll be honest with you. I'm not like I think having him in your locker room is an advantage because I think that he's a brilliant defensive coach. It's weird how they're saying their role though. Like he's going to be coaching the offense on what the defense might do. Like it's just weird. Like, but I guess it's like they don't really want him to step on the toes of what their defense coordinator is doing. So that's
probably
it. But I mean, I like Robert Saleh. I don't think that having him in your room hurts you, but it's also just like, okay,
it's a weird way to go about it. Like, oh yeah, you are this offensive specialist to tell us about what defenses will do. Like, okay, cool. It'd be more interesting, I think, if he was in the division, but I don't know.
I think he got the shaft with the Jets. It was just like their offense could just not get it together for years. And
Zach Wilson pick, Rodgers having the Achilles, like it's not a good look. And you've even seen in the last couple of weeks, the Jets have not really been inspired. You look at like the Raiders last year. You had the coach fired. They really had a good, strong fit here. The Jets, they haven't seemingly gotten better. So it'll be interesting to see. All right, our buddy ZR in the chat. We'll a couple questions real quick, and then we'll get into our other headlines. What are we doing with Baker moving forward? Obviously didn't look great after the injuries to the two wide receivers. Has Geno Smith, Tua coming off IR, need to cut ties with one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going with Tua this week just because I wasn't impressed with what I saw from Baker after those guys got hurt. Not even just like obviously Godwin was at the very end, but as soon as Evans got hurt, the whole vibe was either it just wasn't working or they just couldn't get over the fact that he got hurt. But it was ugly in my opinion. I wasn't a fan of Baker.
Like Baker felt like he needed to play a little bit of hero ball.
Yeah, it was just really the vibe was just really weird. I wouldn't drop him though because I want to see what it looks like. I just don't feel good about it this week. And I feel good about Tua, even though he's probably looking at some rust. The way that the team is responding to him coming back, I'm excited about that. And I would play him this week. I'm not even sure about matchup. I mean, they got the Cardinals. I'm not worried about that matchup at all.
Yeah.
I'd go Tua this week and just kind of wait out Baker to see what it looks like.
Yeah. You could probably, there's guys that will be serviceable that are going to be not that expensive. You already talked about someone like Bo Nix. You can probably flip Bo Nix if he's not available. I can't imagine he's too heavily rostered. You could probably pick him for a guy off your bench. Be like, hey, you want this extra wide receiver 4 until you can figure it out. I feel like the players that there are options for, I'm probably not too excited. Probably going to have guys available like maybe like a Daniel Jones. Just the week to week, you don't have a lot of confidence in. Maybe Jared Goff could be somebody that you look at as like a fill-in. He's not heavily rostered. Easy to say. Whoa, this is interesting. Have you ever seen this before?
Yeah, they do it for Derek all the time. If you get someone pays money to you, you definitely need to answer their question. So some people do that way they can guarantee their question gets answered, and I respect it. Let's get that thing on there.
All right. So which side do you like? Cooper Kupp, Brian Robinson, Breece Hall, Wan'Dale Robinson. I believe Wan'Dale Robinson is leading the league in targets right now.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah, this is interesting. I do think that Kupp gets traded. And I think that will change what his fantasy outlook looks like.
Okay.
As much as I think like wherever he goes, he's going to be a big part of that offense. It's just he's not going to be Cooper Kupp. So I feel like you're trading him at a ceiling, and I'd be okay with that. I am a B-Rob fan, but if you could get Breece, I'm very into that whole idea, getting Breece, because
I would take the Breece side as well. I think that Wan'Dale obviously is a bit of a downgrade, but I think that Kupp, we've already seen injury issues. Like you said, seems likely to get traded. And that's, to me, going to hurt Kupp. Yes, he's a great receiver, but that connection that he had with Matt Stafford, like I think like it's the level of connection of, say, Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers. And you're not just going to go to another team and replace that.
Yeah. Also, if people want to pay to get their questions answered, all that should go to Rocking Around the 412. So, I mean, that'd be cool, honestly. Like,
yeah, we'll have to talk to Zach. I'm down.
Yeah.
You mean you don't want to split the $1?
I don't care if there was 100 in there. It's going to Rock Around the 412.
Oh, man. What a time to be alive. All right, let's hit some more of these questions. Keep them coming, guys. All right, so we talked about Baker, Chase Brown, or J.K. Dobbins for Dobbins in a
There was another question that was up there that I wanted to bring up real quick before we miss it. You're cutting out. You good?
I'm fine.
Okay. Never mind. You're in order yet. That question was above the one I was looking at, so we're good.
Yeah.
Chase Brown or J.K. Dobbins side. Okay.
If this is for the individual week, I will take J.K. Dobbins this week. Great matchup. He's one of the few players that's led his team in rushing attempts every week this season. I think there's 2 of them. So he would be my play. I think even if I was to go 1-for-1, I would take Dobbins. I know Brown has been like the explosive guy for Cincinnati, but I think J.K. Dobbins in a good game script is going to get more consistent because they still like Zach Moss. Zach Moss is a good pass protector. And he's not going to be removed from that offense.
Yeah, I think I'd take Dobbins rest of the season too. So this is for a trade or a start. I'm a J.K. Dobbins side. Yeah,
cool. All right, so Debo does have a shot to play this week. He was in the hospital with pneumonia. Wild stuff for sure. Definitely agree.
That's the comment I want to comment on. You can't trust a thing that Kyle Shanahan says about it. Just go into every matchup if you have a guy in the Niners with a plan, because the dude, like, for him to withhold the information that he held from CMC, you can't trust anything he says. It's like Debo was in the hospital with pneumonia with fluid in his lungs. Like, it's hard for me to believe that he would have the conditioning to play this weekend. It's just crazy to me. But
no, that would be insane. All right, so part 1 of the Nino question was, would you guys still be interested in Kareem Hunt, or you think Pacheco will be back and fully ready soon? Got offered Hunt and Lockett for Brandon Aubrey. That's an easy take for me. I will go and find a new kicker any day. I do think that Kareem Hunt is still going to have value for at least 3. Here's the thing. The Chiefs are 6-0 right now. They have no business on rushing Pacheco back. So I think they're going to take their time. They're going to continue to use him. I am playing in a best ball tournament right now, and we had 1 week of waivers. I used my entire fab budget on Kareem Hunt. I think he's going to have value for this good stretch run. Aubrey, obviously best kicker in the game for fantasy right now, but there's options that are going to be replaceable. And I feel like the running back position has been extremely thin this year. So go ahead and make that move.
Agreed. I mean, just find a kicker and a good offense. That's all you need to do.
You know, surprisingly top 5 kicker this year, Will Lutz out of Denver.
That's not surprising to me at all, honestly. I mean, kickers from Denver typically are pretty high because they can get the distance there in Colorado. So, I mean, that doesn't surprise me one bit. I do want to add one thing, though. When Pacheco comes back, I don't think Kareem Hunt's going away. They're going to play both guys. That's what's going to happen because
I don't think he'll continue to be like a bona fide start.
Right. Neither of them might be. They're both going to be touchdown dependent. I think that they're both looking at 15 to 20 touches a game.
Yeah.
Because they want to save Pacheco too. Everything that the Chiefs are doing is for February.
Exactly.
How it's always going to be.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So we got another trade question here. Should I consider trading Rachaad White, Dalton Kincaid, and Christian Watson for Devontae Adams and Isaiah Pacheco? So I see Scrub, and Dalton Kincaid for Adams and Pacheco.
Adams is a top 10 wide receiver most weeks rest of the way. I would slam the accept button into the earth.
Enough said. Oh, and Chad said that Garrett Wilson, after that explosion of targets the last couple weeks, overtook. But Wandale, number 2. All right. So this is going to get a little bit interesting here. But Mahomes or Darnold, who you got this week, Drew?
Darnold has the better matchup. I don't really like either guy. I feel like Darnold had 2 big weeks to start and then just kind of came back to earth to what he is.
He's very much a dependent, like, on touchdowns, like, because they're not he's not a big yards guy. So if he doesn't get the touchdowns, you're not really getting a lot. I don't really like either one this week. I would drop Patrick Mahomes and see what else is out there personally. Yeah. All right. So just to follow up, Nina had said, yeah, Stafford's the one giving him them 13 targets. Yeah, I completely agree with that. So yeah, slam that trade. Cool. Drew, more importantly, have you got your baby shower invite yet?
No.
Well, Zach did. Suck on that.
It's probably in my mailbox. I check my mailbox like once a week because no one sends me mail.
Yeah, I got yelled at by our post office guy for not checking my mailbox enough, and he was not happy about it.
Yeah, I have this little box. Like we share mailboxes with like the whole neighborhood.
Yeah,
I got that little one. And I get there. I'm just like yanking it out of this huge ball. Cooper Kupp a Steeler?
Oh no. So here's a kicker question for you. Should I go with the Falcons kicker or the Vikings kicker this week? Let me think about this one a little bit. I don't really know. Kickers are always so weird. Let's see what Minnesota's got as far as like so if we're looking at the 2 kickers, you got Will Reichard for Minnesota, highest average in the league. And then this is the 7th highest expected points across betting lines, which is always a play. But the Rams are allowing the 2nd least possessions by opponents. That's kind of like a negative there. Younghoe Koo, Atlanta's not turning the ball over a lot. 4th best opportunity for long kicks this weekend. No real big reasons that we're seeing here. So between the 2, oh man.
This might be dumb, but I always just start the kicker, whoever's going to play in a dome, and I think it's going to score more points. So Rams got the dome against the Vikings. I feel like they're going to being garbage time a bunch. I feel like they might not kick field goals as much. Falcons are on the road.
I kind of like Younghoe Koo, though, is because I don't see Tampa Bay winning that game. So I feel like the Minnesota game could be low scoring, and then like Atlanta could blow out Tampa Bay. But there's not really a good vibe that I have to that. Tampa Bay's giving up 2.7 points above average to kickers. They're also the most porous defense in fantasy football basically right now. So you have that going for you. Minnesota also a plus matchup on the kicker. So it's net neutral to me. I personally like the Atlanta offense a little bit better, so I'm rolling with Younghoe. Yeah, Zach also just wants you to know that he owned you. I'm going to imagine that those squares are the point.
I can actually see the emojis, but I actually owned him. All I did was check the notification of him liking my tweet. So he's kissing my ass on Twitter, and I'm just reflecting that.
All right, so let's get into the Tennessee Titans a little bit here. Ridley did not practice today. Looks like a real one, although it's a Wednesday rest day. Would you rather Boyd or Westbrook-Ikhine as a deep league flyer?
How deep is that league? Because
like
real deep.
Yeah, super deep. I think between the two, Westbrook-Ikhine, he scored last week, which is more than I can say about Tyler Boyd.
I wouldn't start either of them, even in DFS. I don't think that they're going to score enough points to even matter.
Respect Mason Rudolph?
I started him in a league last week. He had no respect for me.
All right, next trade question from Jennifer. Welcome to the show. Dynasty 12-man, I'm getting a second Njoku and DJ Moore, giving up Shaheed Ray Davis in a late 2025 first. Seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, I like that trade a lot. I think David Njoku is a top 5 set it forget it tight end moving forward.
He did the same thing last year too.
Huh?
Njoku, he was a beast down the stretch in fantasy.
Yeah, and I think that he's their main option. And DJ Moore has been very good. It's
they're in second place right now. This is kind of like a win now move. So they're not getting a second round pick. It's Njoku, DJ Moore for Shaheed Ray Davis, 2025 first.
That's what I thought it meant. Yeah, DJ Moore for the first is enough for me. I would take Njoku over Shaheed and Ray Davis because Shaheed's going to be on IR the rest of the year. You're going to win now.
Yeah, I like it. And best of luck to you because I suck at Dynasty now. So enjoy it. Go for it. Push them chips in. All right, Drew. So one of the things we wanted to talk about, or I guess the thing we wanted to talk about as far as the week headlines is that there's a lot of rumors about trades. Zach already convinced us that a Cooper Kupp trade didn't happen, I guess. But let's talk trade front. So I'm going to list a name off for you, and then I want you to tell me who you think would be a good fit. Do you think that would be like any benefit to them from like a fantasy perspective? Are they somebody that you would potentially trade away out of fear of what's going to happen? Or are you going to try to acquire maybe while the prices are low or higher? So first name for you, Mike Williams.
I hate that Zach's in the chat right now because I don't have like any connections whatsoever. I'm just going off my gut and what I feel like makes sense.
But you made $2.
Yeah. For Mike Williams, I think the best fit for him is to go back to the Chargers. Their passing offense has been absolutely horrible. They're looking at 184 yards per game. They're only passing 29 times a game, but it's because of their personnel. They just don't have a guy that they could throw the ball to. I'm also not into him being a Steeler whatsoever. I know that he makes sense from like what he does and what position outside he plays. But I'm just not really vibing. I just don't think he looks like a player I'm interested in throwing out there. I just don't think he looks the part. But for me, Mike Williams, he's familiar with the organization. They're familiar with him. I just think that it makes most sense for him to be a Charger. And even if he does become a Charger, he's not someone I'm looking at for fantasy. I'm not impressed with what he's looked like since he tore his ACL. Maybe next year. He's getting up there in age, but I just don't think that he makes sense to be a Steeler. And I think his best fit is with the Chargers.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know. I think he does get traded. I don't know who it would be to. Would the Chargers take him back? Maybe. The contract hits a lot more palatable for him than they probably would have paid for him in the offseason. Chad in the chat was saying that maybe the Saints, but I still don't understand what getting money.
The Saints, Steelers, and Chargers are the three teams that have been linked to him.
Yeah.
And I think that the Chargers make the most sense, in my opinion.
Yeah, so we'll see. He's not somebody, regardless of what team he goes to, that I would really be looking at acquiring. Because if he was that good, the Jets probably aren't going after Diontae. All right, let's go to contestant number 2. My only fantasy prediction for the year, Diontae Johnson, currently playing for the Carolina Panthers, currently not practicing, hanging out in his sweatpants, currently still mad, which it seems like he has been for like the past 3 years. So what do you got for me?
Yeah, I do think that he gets traded. Obviously, he should get traded. He's a rental free agent at the end of the season. The best fit, in my opinion, for Diontae Johnson is to go to the Niners. They lost Brandon Ayuk. He's their separator in that offense. Deebo Samuel is not that guy. We know what he is. He's not an elite separator. I think you're asking a lot of Ricky Pearsall to just step in, not being able to, be a part of that offense majority of the offseason in training camp and the beginning of the year, being on IR after the shooting. And Juwan Jennings is someone that I like, obviously. I think that they want 3 guys, and that's the reason why they brought Ayuk back. I think they need a guy that's an elite separator. They have 2 third-round picks, and I think that one of those picks gets it done. And I think that's an easy – they don't want to have financial influence for next year, and he's a rental. I think he makes the most sense for them.
You know what's interesting is the hard part about the San Francisco offense is that they don't run like a Sean McVay 3 wide receiver set. So there's a lot of risk in Diontae going for Jennings, and you pick them up today and he goes there because you know that it's probably going to be Diontae and Deebo on the field. So they don't really have as much credence or play moving forward. You can't really do anything about it, but it's something to keep in mind that if you feel that like that's going to happen, you're probably not going after like those 2 guys right now.
Right. Yeah. I think that the Niners are definitely going to make a move. And I was just looking at what's out there. They're not going to get Cooper Kupp. Like the Rams aren't going to do that. Mike Williams doesn't make sense. I think Diontae makes the most sense.
Yeah. So what do you think about Mr. Cooper Kupp?
Yeah. I mean, I really, really want him to be a Steeler. I know we talked about we want an outside guy, but I don't care about that in this sense. Like if they're trying to win, get the best receiver on the field. Just get Cooper Kupp, put him on the field. Pickens outside. Cooper Kupp's going to get open every single play. He'd be huge for us. But I'm going to take this from a perspective that I don't think that he goes to the Steelers. I think that his best fit, and I also don't think that this happens. I just think that it makes the most sense in my opinion. After losing Chris Godwin, I think that the Buccaneers make the most sense because they really attack that slot receiver. I like Jalen McMillan, but again, I think it's a lot to ask of a rookie to step in. I want him to be a Steeler, but I think from fit standpoint, I think Bucks.
They did say that they were expecting today to not trade for a receiver. That could obviously be a smoke screen, but
it's not really who they are to do something like that in season. I just think if you just look at what makes sense, and that's what I'm doing for each of these guys, I think that he makes the most sense in Tampa. That's just how I feel.
Interesting, and I don't think that it would happen, but Detroit has already shown like an interest in wanting to go all in, and Jameson Williams can't stop taking Viagra. So what if they were to like go out and get like another receiving option because they feel pretty set on letting Laporta be like a blocker, and that would give them a really good establishment to pair with Amon-Ra.
I don't think that they have enough to go out and get multiple guys, and they need to focus on the edge. I think that the Browns end up moving Zadarius Smith to them. I think that makes the most sense for Detroit. I don't think that they make 2 moves like that, or at least 2 high caliber moves. Again, like I think that a Steeler is what I want. I just think based on like looking at it on paper, Tampa makes the most sense. I just don't think that they're going to make that kind of move, but I just want to acknowledge that.
Chad, what about the Broncos currently? Said, what about the Broncos in pole position?
There's no way that they could think that they're actually competitive, though. You know what I mean? To give up potentially a second, probably a third. I don't think that they actually get the 2 that they're asking for.
I don't either. I think it's going to be like a conditional 4th that becomes a 3rd.
Yeah. So if they don't trade Kupp in the NFC, which is what Zach's saying, that's fine. I mean, I want him to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I don't think that the Ravens would go that route. I thought about them. I don't know.
I don't know if I can handle having another white receiver on the Steelers because they've been a little bit disappointing lately, and like we just can't keep that going.
The dude's so good.
He
is so good.
All right, so we got one more. This is more of an honorable mention. I don't think that he moves, but I want to throw it out there in case you think that it might happen. What about my guy's tagged this year, T. Higgins?
Yeah, it's actually funny. Chad just said Indy because they were the team that I thought about with T. This is completely off the rails, what I'm going to say here, but it's just like this team would do this, and they have plenty of picks to do it. They don't have any financial obligation next year. I could absolutely see the Eagles just be like, frick it, and just go get a guy like T. Higgins because A.J. Brown's, I mean, he's back, but he had a high ankle sprain. Devontae Smith took a brutal hit 2 weeks ago. He was in the concussion protocol. I just think that they're in a win now mode, and I just feel like they would do something like that. Like, it doesn't make sense to me to do it, but they would do that. So they're like this dark horse team that I think that they would acquire a receiver. And I think that not wanting to have the financial obligation next year, I think that they would be a team that would call the Bengals about T. But I don't think that he'll get traded because I don't think that the Bengals are going to fall out of it far enough that they would give up and move him.
Sure. No, I don't think so either. I think they'll be in the hunt till the end. Joe Burrow's career, so we'll see. The other thing that Zach said that's interesting is that you have the scenario that it could be any team because he's a potential free agent. You want to get ahead on that. So that's a good point too. That would be super interesting.
Can he sign an extension right now because he was on the franchise tag? I don't think that he could sign an extension right now, right? So like,
all right, when we hit the free agency period, then we'll go. Although I guess you can.
He can get tagged again, right? Or is there a rule that you can't get tagged if you're traded?
I'm sure it'll be some under the table kind of little slap and tickle. All right, so before we transition into our fantasy football Tinder, we had one more trade question that we wanted to hit. Joseph, welcome to the show. We got Garrett Wilson, Darnell Mooney for T. Higgins and Amari Cooper, full PPR. I'm 6-1. I don't like this. I feel like I like Cooper in Buffalo. T. Higgins is kind of meh for me. Mooney has been good, and I like the fact that you're trading Mooney. But if I'm trading Wilson and Mooney, I want to attack one elite guy. Like, I want to go get CeeDee Lamb on a team that's struggling right now. I want to go get Tyreek for a team that probably has a bad record. Like, trading two, like, high-end, low-end wide receiver ones, high-end twos for other low-end ones, high-end twos, like, that doesn't really move the needle for me. You're 6-1. Like, I want to play the long game here, and I would want to be more aggressive in my trade. I probably wouldn't do this.
Yeah, I mean, I think Darnell Mooney's not too far off with Amari Cooper because of Bills being a run-first offense. And I think Garrett Wilson's the better player. T. Higgins has been better than Jamar Chase as of late. He's getting more targets. He's doing more with those targets. But I still like Garrett Wilson. And I like to have players on teams that I know that they're desperate and they need to play well. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they know that they can't screw around anymore. They need to be on the field and they need to produce, or else they're going to miss the playoffs.
Sure.
Like, they're desperate. So I think Garrett Wilson's going to get a lot of targets, and he's a guy that I would prefer to have. And I think Mooney and Cooper are just a wash.
Yeah, I don't exactly. I feel like at this point in the season, you have that record. Like, you're not really doing a whole lot. It's like you have two good players. You're trading for two good players. You need basically one more win to get into the playoffs. I'd be going for bigger fish. All right, cool. So we got one more question that we're going to dig into fantasy football Tinder. Looks like two questions from Cap for Life. Definitely seen you before. Welcome back. Stay capping. Gentlemen. Emojis that I can't see. Oh, wait, I can see them on my phone. Dolphin point salute. My guy. Coleman or McMillan long term?
I mean, for me, it depends if they make a move, obviously, for McMillan. Last week, it kind of looked like the Bills were trying to get Keon Coleman involved. Like, they were up big late, and they were still throwing to him. So that's interesting. I'd probably take
honestly,
Coleman.
if this is like a dynasty thing, I don't like it. If it's this year, still don't like it. I would pick McMillan.
McMillan. Yeah, this one's tough for me because I don't know. We're not as high on Coleman, but he might be in a better offense, but they don't throw as much.
Yeah, I like McMillan a lot, though. Actually, I would take McMillan.
I like him too. I just if Godwin comes back though, it's like he's always going to be third on the depth chart.
Yeah,
it's like.
Sure. But with you have the impending Evans is old. You have Godwin may be gone. So I mean, I like it. It sounds like that could be like a rest of season thing as well, just based on this next question. Eagles defense, Chargers defense.
Chargers
versus the Saints. I think that's a really plus matchup. Eagles, I drop them for the Broncos or the Chargers, something like that this week. So
the Eagles secondary is suspect, but their front is very, very good. But they have the Bengals, so
yeah,
Burrow's going to put up numbers against them.
All right, so we got Austin here. Welcome to the show. Could you rate my team full PPR 10-team league? Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, Jaden Reed, JJ, Higgins, Thomas Jr., Brown, Bijan, Walker, Aaron Jones, Hunt, Bigsby, Kittle, Komet, Aubrey. I mean, I think Kittle, who has been great at tight end and is in a great position to, so long as there's not a trade, become a top 2 target in his offense. I really like this team a lot. I think the one thing that I would worry about is if like Drew says, hey, San Francisco goes out and makes another trade, that's going to bump Kittle a little bit. I think that Love and Baker both, not rushers. We're going to talk about this in a little bit, but if you look at the top 8 spots for QBs, all people with rushing upside in terms of points.
Love is throwing enough touchdowns, though, to be relevant. So
he is, for sure. But I think at this point, it's like I would drop Baker. I don't really see a whole lot there, but I like this team a lot. I give it an A-. I think there's some minor things that you can tweak, but you should be a pretty good contender in the playoffs.
Is that Jettas?
Yeah, it looks like it, yeah.
That team's very, very good, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the only thing that can kill you is just the QB. Like, if they don't throw a lot of touchdowns, like you're going to have a low floor at that position, but the rest more than make up for it.
Yeah, I love the starters at wide receiver and running back. I love Kenneth Walker as a 2. Bijan is Bijan. He added Aaron Jones and Kareem Hunt. Like, this is he said it's not Justin Jefferson. So
no, I think he was saying no, it's Justin Jefferson. Like,
yeah,
mix up with the nickname.
Got it. Yeah, and Kittle right now is a top tight end based on what he's looking at. So this is a great looking. And Tank Bigsby, like, it's like he hit on every late round running back and got every good guy in waivers. It's like,
yeah, honestly, I would be looking at trading Hunt and maybe something to upgrade quarterback. Like with Jaden Daniels being hurt, like that would be somebody I'd go after.
But, yeah, I like the squad.
Yeah, like
I don't have any complaints with anything on that roster, to be honest with you.
If you need someone to take over the team, give me a call. No, that's good stuff, man.
You're gonna run into the ground.
All right, so let's start to get into these tenders a little bit. We'll get back into the questions. So let's do this, Drew. Let's shrink it up. We'll talk about it. Cool. Let me get to my new background here, Rick. Sick. All right. So if this is the first time that you're watching us here on Around the 412 Football Show, we do this little game called Fantasy Football Tinder. So what is that, you might ask? It's a little something like this. So if you're not really in the online dating community, we are going to have some profiles that we're going to look at. And from those profiles, we are going to swipe right, meaning we are looking into this player. We're excited about it, future prospects, whatever. And if we're going to swipe left, then that means that we're not really feeling it. Things always work better, though, with an example. So our buddy Zach in the chat, Round 412 Extraordinaire, yesterday did a review of the Danger Witch, now being provided at Primanti's. Looked pretty delicious. Love the review, by the way, Zach. Keep it up. But from that, should he get a lifetime supply of free Danger Witches for that performance? All the bros, they're going to shout out, say yes. You'll see the green heart around our names just to signify that, hey, we're about that life. Maybe if you're keto, don't really like Primanti's, I don't know why you wouldn't. It's delicious. Going to swipe left, and we'll kind of move on with our day. So we have 2 quarterbacks that we're going to talk about today, Drew. Both of them happen to be my 2 dynasty quarterbacks, which has been great until this season. So I really just need to take my time with this one because I don't know how I'm going to get through this. But quarterback one, talked about him a little bit earlier in the show. He's been hot lately, been doing pretty well. He has one receiving touchdown this year, Drew. If he's available, are you jacking Goff from the waiver wire? Okay, I'm back because we're mature adults and we can talk about things.
You were just laughing on my face, not the joke. You're good. All right, so QB 12 in total points. All right, the dude has been eating. He's less than 15 fantasy points in 3 of 6 games, though. Less than 20 in 4 of 6. He's in a dome basically all year except for 3, which is actually a plus. You cut out. I didn't hear you. What'd you say?
13 games this year in the dome.
Yeah, so that's a plus for him. But again, you already alluded to this. It's the lack of rushing yards. Like, the dude has 17 rushing yards on 13 attempts. Like, he offers you nothing in the rushing game, and it's just not going to work. He's a sell high for me. And another thing, too, that I noticed that's a big thing for me is that his playoff matchup is brutal. Like, he's not a guy I would feel comfortable having in my lineup during the playoffs. They have the Bears in week 16 and then the Niners in week 17. It's not something I feel good about. I mean, those could be high-scoring matchups if things really go off the rails, but those are very good defenses. The Bears have given up the second least fantasy points to QBs, and the Niners have given up the 6th least. A lot can change from now until then, but it's easy to sell him right now at a high because he offers you nothing in the rushing game. His last 2 games have been very good, and he still is unable to crack the top 12. It's just he's never going to offer you enough if he doesn't run, and that's just how fantasy football is. So if you can get something for Jared Goff, it's something I would explore.
Yeah, for sure. So Drew may not be jacking Goff, but yeah, actually no, I'm not either. A lot of the same reasons that it's interesting just looking at like the top 6 QBs. I say top 6 because the way that I like to approach positions in fantasy football is, hey, who is going to be in the top half of starts? So am I going to be basically in a plus matchup for over half of my league, especially when we're getting to playoff time? So we look at Lamar Jackson, obviously 73 rushing attempts. Russ Wilson only played the 1 game last week, but he had 24.9 points, mostly in part due to having a rushing touchdown. Baker Mayfield, kind of shocking the world, 3rd in points per game. Jordan Love is 4th in points per game. So you're really relying on those passing touchdowns. Neither one of them really doing a lot on the ground game. And then you have Jaden Daniels, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields. Top 9 right there. So what we really are seeing here, some shockers like Anthony Richardson, nowhere to be found. Some other players that were drafted, Kyler Murray, you'd expect a little bit more from over time. Caleb Williams, he's only ran the ball 25 times. I think that's a little bit less than what I was expecting. So you have a lot of players in that middle tier that I don't really vibe with. I think that if you have like a spot start where Goff has a good matchup, definitely can take advantage of it. I think he's a good real life QB, not necessarily a good fantasy QB. So
that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Cool. So thinking of QBs in real, I mean, this guy may be the best to ever do it. But Drew, I don't know how else to say this. Patrick Mahomes is QB 22 in points. So a lot of people are saying sayonara Mahomes. How you feeling about it, man?
Yeah, I'm with him. I've actually been on this train for 2 years now. I feel like every year we've had a show where I kind of went, I was like, I'm not a Mahomes guy in fantasy. It's just when Tyreek left, their offense changed so much that they're just more balanced, but he doesn't have as much big plays. You already mentioned he's QB 22 in terms of total points, QB 24 on a point per game basis. They have no players on their roster that have more than 300 receiving yards. And obviously, we're going to bring up now that they acquired DeAndre Hopkins this morning. Obviously, that helps. But I think that this is more of this will help DeAndre Hopkins thing than it does help Mahomes. I don't think it's going to do enough for both of them. I'm not really vibing with it. And the other thing, too, is Rashee Rice was killing it. Like the first few weeks before he got hurt, I think he was wide receiver 2 overall. And Mahomes still wasn't cracking the top 12. Like it doesn't matter how good his receivers have been. He still is not up to the snuff of the other quarterbacks. Travis Kelce's been a shell of himself. I think that I think that he's going to have his good games. He's going to have his bad games. But he's not a guy that's elevating Mahomes either. And they've kind of converted their offense into more of a rushing first team. I mean, 32 rushing attempts per game. They were at like 50-50, but the last 3 weeks with how Kareem Hunt has been, they've been increasing that to over 35 rushing attempts a game. So that's taking less opportunity away from Mahomes. And he's just not doing that much when he is throwing the ball. So he offers a little bit with his legs, but it's not enough. He's 15th in the league in rushing. He's just not that guy anymore. And Brady talked about it on the telecast this weekend. Like, he just does what he needs to do to win games. And that's just who he is. Like, he's not a fantasy quarterback, just like Goff.
Dude, he has 6 touchdown passes.
He has more interceptions than he has touchdown passes. He's just not that guy.
They're undefeated.
I know. It's like they ride their defense the last few years, and then he just does whatever he needs to do enough to just win games. Like, it's kind of like the Steelers in a way, but
with a good quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. Like, with the best quarterback of all time, but they just milk games out, and he does enough to win.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the stats, I mean, he's had some tough matchups in New Orleans, San Francisco. He's got some better matchups coming. I think there's going to be a stretch, weeks 12 to 15, that'll be serviceable. Carolina, Vegas, Cleveland, 3 out of those 4 games. But, yeah, I mean, he's on the drop list for me. I think you've covered everything there. Not really much more to be said. It's weird, man. I mean, especially look at that first year that he started. He threw 60 touchdowns. Look at him now. Okay. So before we move on into our OnlyFantasy predictions for the week, let's get back to some more questions. Tyler, the show, Auden or Ferguson this week, Drew?
I'm a Jake Ferguson guy every week. I just think that he always has the opportunity to do well. I think he's been a top 10 quarterback most weeks without really scoring any touchdowns. He's a number 2 in that offense. I just always bank on Ferguson. For Otten, I think that he's a touchdown-dependent tight end. I know with those other guys out, but I think that they're going to revert back to their running backs more often. That's just who they are. That's what they did last week on Monday night. They're going to ride Bucky Irving, Rashad White, and Sean Tucker. And it's weird. They had 5 carries each. They're just going to ride those 3 guys.
It's going to be by committee. They really meant it.
Yeah. They're just going to ride the hot hand. It's real.
And nobody was hot, so they were just like, well, I guess you get a turn. I'm with you. San Francisco, 4.1 points per game above average on tight ends. Atlanta, the one spot that they manage well is in the run game and kind of shutting out tight ends. So I think that Otten, he is somebody that I would look to acquire. I think he has the potential to essentially step up there. But, yeah, I think for this week I'm still going to roll with Turn Ferguson there. Okay. Would you Jefferson and Ramondre Stevenson to get Dak and Lamb? My current QB is Caleb Williams, half PPR. No.
I'm leaning the same. Ramondre's not really doing it for me. He's not doing anything in the passing game, but I'm liking Caleb. I think he has really good matchups along the way, and I think I'd rather just ride with him.
Yeah, and Dak is behind him in points per game. I think the other thing too, I've said this before on the show, I'm not a stack guy. So to me, they've both struggled all season. Why would I want to sign up for that pain? And I think Justin Jefferson's better than CeeDee Lamb. So what are we doing? Ramondre for Dak? Don't touch it. Don't even think about it.
Agreed.
We got this masshole here who didn't know what the 412 was. That's Western Mass. What's up, my guy? 412, Pittsburgh. Figured it out eventually. Good for you.
I'm 717, so.
Yeah. You're also not Pittsburgh, so.
We don't have electricity here. I have a hamster running on a wheel over there.
He does the show with hamsters on turbines.
That's why I keep cutting out. You keep messaging Joe that I don't hear him. The hamster's tired.
Sheesh. All love, though. All love. Okay, so Hunter Henry and Xavier Worthy for Diontae Hopkins. This trade does nothing for me.
I think I'd rather have Hunter Henry over Hopkins.
Yeah.
I think you're giving up two pieces, and you have
like Worthy and Hopkins is mid for mid. We were just talking about how they aren't really passing the ball. So I guess Hunter Henry, he looked good last week. Big game. I also just don't know what to do about this. I thought Masshole was a term of endearment, but apparently not. So we'll see. All love, my friend. All love. Here. All right, Drew. So let's transition into our only fantasy picks for the week. So before we can dive into the past of what we've done and how things went, probably a little more exciting for you. Let's talk about what we did last week, week 7. And pretty much just chasing the Jaguars defense for QBs.
I respect Massachusetts. That's
I
really
Massachusetts. My wife's best friend lives in Massachusetts. I really thought it was a term of endearment. Don't really bang with the Sox, but that's here nor there. Or the Red Sox, or most of Boston, honestly. But whatever. That's fine. So Drake May, 26 for 37, 266 yards, 2 TDs, 3 rushes for a whopping 1 yard. QB7.
You still have Kate Stover.
Well, I couldn't change it. Still had to leave it. So I pull off the mask of Cade Stover to find Dalton Schultz. Did a whole lot of nothing. I got really excited. He had this long pass in the first quarter, 28 yards. I was like, we're in business. That was literally all that he did for the rest of the day. Looking at the game, Stroud struggled. 21 attempts, 10 completions, 86 yards. So if we go off percentages, great week. Got 25% of his team's passing yards. The only problem, they only threw for 86. So we're mad, but we live and we learn. We'll see what happens. So week 8, Drew Hannes, one guy. What do you got for me?
This is a Pittsburgh show, right? Because
This is a Pittsburgh show, I believe. I couldn't tell by your background or my background, but You
got dogs playing poker back there?
Yeah, I do.
All right. I feel like I've taken it easy the last few weeks, just picking on the Jaguars. But I am going to stay, with the quarterbacks. It's working well for me. I'm going to go with Jameis Winston. I just want to have fun with this one. I feel like it's going to be a really rocky road. Like when he's running through that obstacle, just falling out of it, he's probably going to throw for 3 picks. It's going to look ugly. But at the end of the day, I just fully expect him to throw for 325 and 4 touchdowns. They're going against the Ravens, who are giving up the 6th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. That's part of it. Zach with the what the. They're going to be without Marlon Humphrey. I don't expect him to play. He suffered an injury last week. The Ravens are averaging 37 points per game over the last 4 weeks. I think it's just going to get really out of hand, and Jameis is just going to throw the ball 50 times because they're going to be down so much. And he's just going to put up a good number in garbage time. It doesn't have to be pretty. It's fantasy football. We just need those stats to, be high. So I like Jameis this week. I will be.
After that passionate speech that he gave, I like it. I think it's fun. I think that the Cleveland offense, despite losing Amari Cooper and Deshaun Watson, is going to be better this week for it.
I'm not going to start him in any lineups. I'll be honest with you. He's going to be in my DFS only.
Yeah.
I just think he's going to do well, though. And it's risky. That's why I'll be in DFS lineups. But if you play him in DFS and he does hit, you should win some money because he's going to cost nothing.
Well, right. Because like you said before, last week. So this week he should essentially be free because they're expecting him to be a backup. And knowing that he was the 3rd QB last week, that could push the price down further.
They've been better about that, actually. I'd actually like to see what he's priced at. Well, you can do yours, and I'll let me look.
Question before I jump into mine. So you got Mr. Grapefruit here. Welcome back. Would you guys start Jalen McMillan over Marv Harris Jr.? Call of Duty drops this weekend, right?
This is rough.
Who thought that we would be having this conversation right now? What a weird sport.
Yeah. I'm still going to start Marvin Harrison. And the reason why I'm doing that is because he was on the field showing his frustration. Like, it was obvious that he was upset with how things were going. And the last time that happened, he popped for 2 touchdowns in the first quarter and had like 150 yards. Like, I think that they know that they have to get him the ball.
I mean, given the track record of his dad, I would not be messing around with Marvin Harrison.
And they're playing the Dolphins with Tua coming back. So if they put up a lot of points, they're going to be throwing. I think that he's safe for one more week, but it's tough. I was looking at some rankings today, and I don't see him being in the top like 25 of anyone's rankings this week.
Yeah,
but I just don't think you could take him out.
I think the hard part too is who steps up. You have Sterling Shepard, McMillan. They have Palmer over there. You have Kate Otten. We don't really know how the offense is going to shake out. So I think I have to lean Marv this week. If we see goals and kind of what the target share looks like going in this week, then I feel a lot better about it. But it feels too soon to make that kind of decision.
Yeah, I play him.
Yeah. All right, so we got a trade question from T Money, another familiar face. Welcome back. 10-man PPR, Burrow, Jacobs, Gibbs, CD, Chase, Njoku, DK, Worthy, bench. Oh, that's not the trade. Okay. I was like, oh my God, we are doing a team swap. But
they're probably typing right now.
I got it. DK, Worthy, Irving, Tracy, D-Hop, Kincaid, Myers, Brooks, 4 and 3. Would you trade D-Hop for Jordan Mason? Yes. What? Really?
I'm fairly certain that Christian McCaffrey is going to be back in 2 weeks.
I just think that D-Hop is still going to suck. So I would take the 2 weeks of Jordan Mason over the suckage of Hopkins.
I mean, Jordan Mason has a bye this week. So you're only getting him for 1 week. That's why he's probably coming back in 2 weeks. I think that CMC will be back in 2 weeks. Because everything that they're saying, and it's not just Shanahan, there's talk that he might come back this week, but why push him because they have the bye? So I think he's back in 2 weeks.
So you're thinking
that was our timeline the whole time. I mean, I know you didn't think he's going to play, but I was really on week 10.
Yeah, you were for sure. I still think I would do the trade. The only way that I don't is if somebody is like, oh man, D-Hop's with Mahomes, he's going to go crazy and you can get something stupid. I don't think D-Hop is ever going to touch my lineup, so at least give me 1 week of Mason.
I mean, it is a good matchup for Mason. I don't know. I think that you could probably move D-Hop to someone else who's going to buy into the Mahomes thing and him being on the Chiefs.
I would say you figure it out because they play on Sunday, right? So I would say by Thursday you make the call. You either have a better deal with somebody or you take Mason. And if you feel that CMC isn't coming back,
the Niners are still in contention. Their record doesn't say, but they're only 1 game back of the Seahawks for the division, and they're not going to roll over. There's no way that they'll roll over. They're in a win now mode.
Yeah, they better not. I picked them to win the Super Bowl this year.
I don't see that happening. So how much did you donate?
It was a $10 add-on for like our fantasy league that I'm in first place in. Last year I won the league, and then I had the 49. I picked the 49ers last year too. And then it was like Super Bowl. I was like, I'm going to get the sweep. Didn't happen. But I would make the move. I don't really see anything happening for it. Okay. So another name we talked about a little bit earlier in the show. I don't think I've really dipped into the running back game so far this season. So my only fantasy subscription for the week, J.K. Dobbins. Like I mentioned, he has led the team in carries every week. Kamani Vidal did get 18 snaps last week, but it was more in a pass-catching role. He only got 1 target, 3 carries, so I'm not really worried about him. Hassan Haskins doesn't really do anything for me. Gus Edwards, Drew, do you know what's wrong with him? He kind of just vanished. Is he hurt right now?
What'd you say?
Gus Edwards?
He's on IR.
Yeah, IR. So it's like Dobbins really has that role pretty much locked up. He hasn't really done anything in a good bit, but I really do like the matchup. New Orleans has been very porous against the run. We're not expecting them to be able to do a lot through the air, so I'm expecting a good game script for him to be able to pick that up. They're averaging 13.1 points per game more on average in the NFL, that being New Orleans against running backs, and that's who the Chargers draw. Drew already talked that they're not throwing a ton, 29 points or times per game, so I think that all around that's going to be a good matchup for us. Just to jump back into this one.
Ferguson.
Cool. So I'm going to type that in the chat just in case you Missed that. Cool. All right, so we got a couple more questions. We got Chaka in the house. How you doing, my friend? Would you trade Hunt and Smith for Puka Nacua redraft PPR? I have Kupp, and I feel like if he gets traded, Puka can be a strong wide receiver one. Drew, you're smiling. Talk to me.
It's risky. Considering how Puka responded to this same injury coming out of camp. But I would make that deal. Because, like, if he does play the rest of the year and Kupp gets traded, you're winning your league. Absolutely winning your league with that kind of move. Don't play with fear. Like, that's a league-winning move.
Yeah.
If Puka comes back and, like, he's going to be a top – him and Stafford, if Kupp gets traded, he's a top 10 set it and forget it wide receiver if he's on the field.
Yeah. No, I like it. I think I would probably do the deal.
Don't make money.
No, scared money don't make no money. I think, too, the only thing that would give me reservation on a deal like this is, like, what's the state of your running back room? I assume if you're trading Hunt, then you have at least a little bit of depth. And I would want, going into the playoffs, I would want to have 3 running backs, 4 wide receivers that I feel good about. As long as I have that, love a good upgrade opportunity like this. It feels steep for Puka, but I get it, and you probably got Hunt for free. So
it's steep because of what, like, basically everything that they described. Like, Kupp gets traded. He's the only one there. He's probably going to come back next week because they just opened his window today, actually, or yesterday. I feel really good about it. I've been stashing Puka in every league. I'm a huge Puka guy. It is crazy risky, though.
Well, you got Kamara, Walker, Jones, Hunt, White, Ramondre. Yeah, I would go
with that. Yeah.
Yeah, because then you have Kamara, Walker. Apparently, Kamara's been playing with a broken hand. Did you know that?
Yeah, but I haven't brought it up because it hasn't limited him. So Hunt's the 4th guy on that.
Go for it. Yeah. I like it. Cool, man. All right. Well, Drew, let's tell these people. I'm sure the questions will pour in as we start to do this. So if you have any last-minute questions that you want us to answer, please feel free to hit us up. If we didn't get a chance to answer your question today, good way to find us on the following venues. So all of our live stuff is going to be on Around the 412 on YouTube and Twitch, but you can find us on the personal accounts that we have that are listed in our little nameplates here, or you can tag the channel at AT412FF show for any questions that you have throughout the week. You can also find me on Reddit if you're lurking in those trenches. Drew, any closing thoughts as we lead into week 8?
Oh, man. Donate to Rocket Around the 412. Give us a shout on Twitter if you have any more questions ahead of the matchups on Sunday. We'll be on checking that.
All right, cool. So we're not seeing any questions in the chat, so we're going to shut it down. This is the Around the 412 Fantasy Football Show. I'm Joe Frick. That's Drew Hannis. Well, I guess that's Drew Hannis. I'm Joe Frick. Best of luck, week 8, and we'll see you next Wednesday at 6 p.m.